Welcome to the first module of Participatory Fluency, a course where you will learn how to be an international citizen and to participate in discussions with fluency and with an opinion to be shared with others. It's important to recognize that in this first theme we're going to talk about home, and many things can be said about the place where we live. We can start by talking about our street, our neighborhood, our country, our state, and the geographical places that surround us, that we are in. We're going to exchange information about these places, and we're going to ask each other about these places, and sometimes we'll find similarities or differences that we will debate. But this on a classroom context. In an international context, you may find yourself talking to a person who is not from Brazil, and they will say where they live. In this context, you should be able to see what the person's context is, what they deal with, and situations like, for example, do they have a gas station nearby? Where do they go to when they have to go grocery shopping? Where do they go to have fun? Where do they find their friends? Do they have friends who live close to them? Is the neighborhood friendly? What are some of the touristic places that they can go to in their city, or even if they want to book a plane and to visit another state or another region in the country? Where are some of the places where they can go? What are some of the things that they can do there? Is it common for people to travel? Do they think about traveling? Or is it something that they need to think about when they're on vacation and they prefer to stay at home, taking care of things at home, surrounded by the people who live with them? When you talk about the people who live with you, you're talking about home, of course. But then you're talking about your parents, you're talking about your brothers and sisters, you're talking about your family. You're also talking about your partners, and you may be talking about pets, for example. In all of these examples, you'll see situations that we deal with that are interesting to talk about and to exchange conversations with people who are not from the country or who are in a different region than you. For example, you may think that living with pets is something cool, but another person doesn't like it. Maybe you can have a different kind of conversation and talk about how living with dogs in a house is really good, but if you live in an apartment, it's not so good because they don't have space to play, and that makes them feel limited and sad. There are many things you can discuss in relation to your community. The things that you can do, how much there are buildings in the city or the neighborhood specifically, and things that you have, for example, supermarkets and things that make the place more lively and more good to live in terms of quality of life. There are also cultural activities, places to go to listen to some music, galleries, museums, and all this kind of stuff. Cultural activities can also be in the terms of things that people do on the street that call people's attention. Cultural intervention, so to speak. If you talk about all these things and you manage to find community in the places where you live, and you exchange ideas with a person who finds their community similar to yours, you may find a lot of things to talk about. And so you'll find a very interesting experience of exchange talking to those people and the places where you live, the places that you call home. But more important than that is it's also interesting to think about changing homes. Changing from a small city to a big city, for example, can be a big challenge, and maybe you want to talk about that. Talking about the differences between cities can be something good, especially if you travel too much, and if you find people to talk to who have traveled to different cities and who have lived in different cities. Then you can talk about the experiences of living in a different city and the kinds of people that live in those cities. If they are more cool, more business kind of people, more elderly people, more sports kind of people that practice a lot of sports. Maybe a lot of more hipsters, a lot of musicians, a lot of people who are not in the positive side, but then you can talk about the problems of the city and so on. Having a mature discussion about the place where you live and the things that need to be improved. You can also talk about the things like, for example, who runs a city and what do you think needs to be changed. But it's not necessary to enter these kinds of details when you meet a person. It just might be interesting. The most important thing is to think that the person who you want to meet will be welcomed in the place where you are, and your home can be their home, so you can visit them and get to know this person in real life, which is the basis of this course. You will find someone online who will get to know you, who you will get to know, but eventually you will need to meet together in real life. And so talking about these things will be crucial and very important for you to really get along and have a good relationship. On the next section, we'll talk about habits and how they shape our perception.